Welcome. I am Dr. Patrice Berry, licensed clinical psychologist, and here I share legal and entertainment news from a psychological perspective. I am a licensed psychologist in Virginia, and the case that we'll be talking about today, we are just using publicly available information. And so this is not our expert analysis. Like, we don't know, all we know is what is publicly available, and we're just giving general commentary. This isn't psychological or legal advice, and I'm really
Mhm.
glad to be joined by Karen Cole, UK lawyer, and I'll let her introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Karen Cole from Legal Minded Friends, and my channel offers you a visual to the legal process. So you can check out my channel. I've done a few things on defamation, and we'll probably talk about that as we go through.
Yes. And so the case that we'll be covering today is Baby Reindeer. And this was a Netflix series. And right within the lawsuit, they break everything down. We have combined our streams. And so, welcome to Karen's audience. Welcome to mine.
Mhm.
And if you are not following Karen, her information is linked right in my description. And if you're not following me, my information is right in hers as well. And
Okay.
so let's go on ahead, and I'm going to share my screen so we can take a look at the lawsuit. So when I saw this lawsuit, I knew I wanted to collaborate with a lawyer to break it down and talk about it, because Fiona Harvey is a real life person who she has come forward. She went on the Piers Morgan show, and she's the one that has self-professed that Baby Reindeer, the Netflix series, was based on her. And for anyone that's actually watched the series, to me, I think Richard Gadd, the way that he portrayed stalking, it was in a way that was to show that it's not all evil, that the person isn't just this horrific evil person. When I watched the show, I had a lot of sympathy and empathy for the Martha character. And but I think the real life person has come forward and said that things were not accurate, and they are going to pull up some things right within this lawsuit. And so, right at the very beginning, it says the above quote from the first episode of the Netflix series Baby Reindeer is a big lie, is the biggest lie in television history. I think her lawyer uses very big language. It is
Range.
a lie. It is a lie told by Netflix and the show's creator, Richard Gadd, out of greed and lust for fame, a lie designed to attract more viewers, more attention, to make more money, and to viciously destroy the life of plaintiff Fiona Harvey, an innocent woman defamed by Netflix and Richard Gadd at a magnitude and scale without precedent. You
Yeah.
do you have any thoughts just on that opening?
Yeah, well, I when I first read this, it's based on a lie, right? That's what they're saying, and it's gross negligence for defamation. And the series comes out with this is a true story,
Yeah.
and I think we're going to show a clip in a bit of the Parliament in the UK got together, and the broadcasting committee was really concerned about this, and I was shocked to hear what Netflix had to say. So,
Yeah.
yeah, but we'll get into what I think about the claim so far. You know,
And this lawsuit came after that appearance by the Netflix exec in Parliament. And now might be a good time. Let me just see, because I just have to change my presentation. So
you're
let me
doing well. I couldn't even get my thumbnail up. It's like I wanted to give you guys notice a long time ago, but I
every
yes, yeah, they
everything.
did advertise it as a true story. I can do the chat while you're switching around those other things.
But the thing is, if you watch the series, the character at the very beginning types, "This is a true story." But the
Mm.
character's name is not Richard Gadd. The character's name is Donnie. And so there have been some people that have come forward and said, "Is this the true story of the character Donnie?" And, but I think Netflix got themselves into some trouble by going on and saying that, yes, this is based on the story of a convicted stalker. I think that's where Netflix might be in a little bit of trouble. And also the other thing that happened with this, because when I watched the series, I thought that most, if not all of it was true. And if you watch the Piers Morgan interview, because I think he was the one that brought up defamation and duty of care within
Yeah.
his multiple interviews and the things that he's talked about with this. And because the show used exact quotes from Fiona Harvey's public, well, but these were things that she tweeted to Richard Gadd, but those tweets still existed. They were still up, and it didn't say based on true events. The
No,
series
that's
opens
the
with,
problem,
"This
Kelly.
is
Yeah,
true story." That is
yeah.
what, but
So at the end, they say, they make a little disclaimer, right?
and honestly, so I watched, it's my understanding that that disclaimer is at the end of each
Yeah.
episode,
Most
but
people skip through that
I skipped,
and go
so
to
I
straight
binge
to the
watched
next.
this series. This series to me was very, like, it is emotional, it is kind of funny in a
I
dark
never saw
way.
it, but I saw the Pierce Morgan, and yeah, there's some concerns definitely, especially if they're saying, she went to prison, and they do say it twice.
Mhm.
They say it for stalking someone, um, an MP's wife, and they also say it um, for him, I guess, for 9 months, wasn't it?
And it is my
Nine and a
understanding
half months.
It is my understanding that Richard Gadd has said that the story is emotionally true and that some things were changed to kind of
Mm,
have a series play, but this story is based on he did a play, and I think they might get into this in here. I'm not sure, because they are suing Netflix. That is who is being named in this lawsuit. Richard
yeah,
Gadd is not named in any lawsuits that I've seen so far. And and within the lawsuit, it says this is an action by plaintiff Fiona Harvey against defendants Netflix Inc. and Netflix Worldwide Entertainment for defamation, intentional infliction of emotional distress, negligence, gross negligence, and violations of Harvey's right of publicity arising out of the brutal lies defendants told about her in the series. And the lies that defendants told about Harvey to over 50 million people worldwide include that Harvey is a twice convicted stalker who was sentenced to 5 years in prison, and that she essayed Gad, and um, and that the lies never stopped because it was a better story than the truth, and better
yeah,
stories made money. And that is a pretty strong claim, and there's a part of me that's wondering if they think Netflix will just settle, because there have been a few based on true story lawsuits that have come forward where somebody did not like the way that they were depicted in a film, and they have filed lawsuits that have settled for $1 million, or that have settled for some amount of money. Because Fiona Harvey, after her Piers Morgan interview, she came forward saying that she only received, I think it was something like $400 or something. Like she received a certain amount, and she wanted more money from his show as well. And her lawyers are probably gonna ask her to step back from making claims like that while they're going after Netflix, because Fiona Harvey had a public Facebook profile. There was a lot of things that what she was doing and saying, in my opinion, it seemed to fit what was within the Netflix show, and to me, she was making some things worse for herself. That's just my personal opinion.
Well, that's always the risk you take when you're going to go on media, especially when you've got an open case. You don't want to do that. So does
And
everybody know, just before we maybe should clarify, if people know, because if you're from England, defamation is there's a different burden of proof. So, in California, the plaintiff has to prove that that there was defamation uh, made against them. Yeah, so that there was lies, and so the plaintiff has to do that. But here in the UK, it would be the opposite way around. The burden would be on the defendant. So the plaintiff makes a claim, but then the defendant would have to prove that they did not lie. And that's maybe where this chap Gad could say, well, I didn't think it was a lie because it was my opinion. Well, he said she went to prison. So I think that's going to be the biggest, and we'll get to that part, won't we?
yes, and so Sarah, they did not use her real name, and I'm gonna stop sharing because for anyone that wants to dig deeper into this, I have because this might be a good time to show some of the
Oh,
clips
the
that
parliamentary one, yeah.
yes, and let's see. Alright.
I think I
So
can
I
share
just
it.
wanna start because some people have just talked about within the Piers Morgan interview, was Fiona Harvey being truthful? And there were some things that were said in her Piers Morgan interview that seemed to minimize her behavior and her role because the allegation is that she sent over 40,000 like email. I don't know, they said she had an excessive amount
Yeah.
of communication with him. And a lot of people would say, well, did you respond to the messages? And that's really what came up within this show was how even if somebody is receiving excessive communication, how they might have a bond with the
Mm.
individual that they're being harassed by. Because harassed might be a better word than stalked. The show
Well, one
read
is
us.
definitely they're two different meanings though,
Mhm,
being
mhm,
harassed, being stalked. So I
mhm.
think he's really trying to say stalking because he was trying to say she followed him around, it was unwanted, so
And that he was asking her to stop, and the show really does play that. So I have this link
mm.
to this video by Behavior Arts where he goes into her body language during that Piers Morgan interview. I also
We
found
might have to take one of the messages down if people want to see it.
thank thank you. I
Yeah.
appreciate that. And so this one goes as a variety video that goes into, just the behind the scenes of filming this, and I think it's really important. So the actress that plays Martha, who is supposedly based on because Fiona Harvey's the one that's come forward and said this was based on me. Richard Gadd never said this was her. Nobody else, like Fiona Harvey is the one who came forward and said, "This is based on me."
Yeah.
And, the actress that plays her said that she never saw any of the real life messages. She never got any direction about the real life person, that she played this the way it was written as a
Yeah.
character, and this was her interpretation of the writing. And I think that's very important because if she had viewed a lot of the real information, I think that could make things look a little worse on the Netflix side if she had seen the real messages, if she had listened to the
Yeah.
real voicemails, if she had done any of that, I think that that could have made things a little bit trickier on Netflix's side.
Hmm. I I think that she probably did. I know she said she didn't, but it could be because she does a really good impression of her, doesn't she?
But,
So,
it could just be that the writing was that good as
mm,
well. And she even says in this interview that the laugh that she does, because they focus on the laugh within the show, that is her real laugh, and that
Yeah,
she
and how would
was
she know
nervous.
that that's the laugh of Fiona,
And
right?
and she
So,
said that this is her, like, Fiona would have to come forward and say, like, "I think this was based on my laugh," or something, like, she would have to come forward and say that. I think if they did, if it's true that this actress didn't see any of that information, I think
mm,
that makes it a stronger case that she was playing the character Martha and not trying to impersonate
yeah.
Fiona Harvey.
Yeah, so, yes, M's got a question. Did I miss the start? Who's suing Netflix? Yeah, so Fiona Harvey, the real person um, in this Netflix series,
And
Baby Reindeer, and it had 22 million views in the first week,
it was a
and
really
I
great.
think the parliamentary committee, they also say it had a lot more. So
Wow.
so that's quite interesting.
Mhm. And, so somebody mentioned that the actress kind of looks like, Fiona, and she will say, because they play a piece of her audition video, she auditioned for over, like, 4, like, she auditioned over months to try to get this
Oh,
role,
and
and that
didn't she go and get her hair grayed and then sent a clip into them and then
they weren't sure if she was old enough to because there was supposed to be this age gap. They
yeah.
weren't sure if she was gonna look old enough.
But can I tell you something that there I don't know if anybody's seen the movie Queen's Gambit. Did you ever see that movie?
I don't remember.
Of the
Was it the chess one or was it something else?
Yes. Well, she sued Netflix um because they said she had never played a man before and she had played men 59 times, and that was just last year in 2022. So I guess, well, it was, I counted like a year and a bit ago, right? So and Netflix settled out, and so we don't know, like they settled before court, so we don't know what the amount was. So, and that's just for lying that hadn't played any men. So I think this is a pretty good case, you know?
Especially because they make it seem as though she was convicted, like she pled guilty in court
Mm,
to the
yeah.
offenses. That's how everything ends. And, so I believe
Oh,
this was
yeah, that was shocking. Yeah, this is a good clip. Yeah, I got this from the parliament, but
all
yeah.
right. And so
Okay, that's fine.
once again, the full links are available down below. I'm gonna go on ahead and play this clip.
Reasonable precaution in disguising the real life identities of the people involved in that story.
She's been identified,
whilst also striking a balance with the veracity and authenticity of Richard's story, because we.
I'm gonna skip because he's gonna say a word.
Oh, I know the word. The word.
Because he is gonna say that this was a story about
Mhm.
me, and that they wanted to portray it um in a way that was true to what they're saying, like he said, in a way that was true to Gad's story. I'll keep playing.
Richard's
Mm.
story and telling Richard's story in a truthful way. I personally wouldn't be comfortable with a world in which we decided it was better that Richard was silenced and not allowed to tell his story. So obviously, we are following the situation very closely.
Can I just ask Mr. King a question? We were all talking in our private meeting beforehand about all the things that we were enjoying watching and binge watching for some of us. And a number of different people mentioned Baby Reindeer, which is one of yours. I think it's had 54 million views worldwide or something like that. So huge, huge success. But it was a difficult watch, wasn't it? And I just wonder what your duty of care rules are in series like that or productions like that. Were you concerned about the characters being identified and the effect that it would have on the characters concerned?
Baby Reindeer is an extraordinary story, and it is obviously a true story of the horrific abuse that.
So he is saying that this is a true story based on what the real life person. Yes. So I'm gonna let this keep playing.
Precaution in disguising the real life identity.
And he said at the hands of a convicted stalker, and that they tried to disguise the real life identities, but she was found very easily.
Of the people involved in that story in the making of the show.
She's been identified,
whilst also striking a balance with the veracity and authenticity of Richard's story, because we didn't want to anonymize that or make it generic to the point where it was no longer his story, because that would undermine the intent behind the show. And we did also work very closely with the Susie Lamplugh Trust, who runs Britain's National Stalking Helpline, and also We Are Survivors, in promoting and launching the show. And they've said a lot subsequently about what the series has done to drive the conversation around this often quite taboo topic, particularly for male victims of stalking, and the amount of interest and inquiries it's driven to their organisations.
It was a fascinating story and very disturbing. But I understand that the woman concerned, the Martha in real life, has now been identified. So presumably this will have quite a significant impact on her life. She's Scottish, I think, and works in the legal profession and is now contemplating legal action, I understand, because of the effect it's had on her life. And I just wondered what your thought process was about her and the effect that this would have on her, because obviously somebody who's impacted by quite serious mental health problems.
Richard Gadd was very clear that that was not the intent of the show, that it should inspire people to try and track down the sort of real life individuals. Ultimately, it's obviously very difficult to control what viewers do, particularly in a world where everything is amplified by social media. But fundamentally, this was about Richard's story and telling Richard's story in a truthful way. I personally wouldn't be comfortable with a world in which we decided it was better that Richard was silenced and not allowed to tell his story. So obviously, we are following the situation very closely.
Did you offer any contact or support for the Martha character in real life?
I cannot get into the specifics of what happened around the making of the show, because it wouldn't be appropriate for me to comment, and I don't want to give further fuel to some of the theories which are circling on the internet.
Now, that's finished now. Did I send you the parliamentary letter that man sent to him?
I think you did. Was it a link? Was it a YouTube link or was it a PDF?
I did a screenshot, like a JPEG.
I believe that. I think that was on Instagram. Was that on Instagram?
No, it was just right here. It was just on an email.
Okay.
So
it came through on my end, because I think we had issues with our emails going back and forth, so I didn't have anything attached. I did get pictures over on Instagram. I did not get a picture in my email.
Parliament sent a letter. Okay.
Do you want to read it?
Yeah. So, well, he just says that. We asked you at your appearance at the May 8th, before the House of Commons Culture, Media and Sport Committees. I asked you about the Netflix series Baby Reindeer, and specifically the duty of care to this woman now identified as Martha from the series. So, and it just goes on to what he said, and then it says journalists have been thus far unable to find a record of the conviction for which you referred. Can you provide me with evidence for this serious claim which you make to me at the select, which he said made to me at the select committee. So what's interesting about that is that California law is going to expect her to prove that it's a lie. And this committee has written saying, Netflix, you've got to prove to me. So that will be interesting to see what happens, because, she might be able to use that in court to say, I mean, like she can do what we have, like a police check.
Mhm.
She can do that to show that there's nothing there. Right. What?
So the thing that it brought up for me is the person that did file, there was a former PM's wife, right? Did you
Yeah,
see?
yeah,
Yes,
I saw her interview.
yes.
Well,
So,
she filed like a restraining order. It's called something different in Scotland, but she filed one of those. Okay, and so the sheriff served it on Fiona, and Fiona had, so even when you get a non, we call them non-molestation orders here, and they're restraining orders to America. So, and in Scotland, they're something else. So anyway, they served her with that, and she was supposed to respond within 21 days, and she hadn't responded. So the sheriff said, well, we'll give it to you for a year plus 1 day, and that's it. And she hasn't seen the lady for 22 years since. So I don't even know if that's going to be relevant to come into court, into this, like why they should, because that was 22 years ago, and it was made by default, really, because she didn't.
And Laura, so her name is Laura Ray. I'm going to just share my screen, just so we all know, because she has described Fiona Harvey as a dangerous stalker, and that she worked for her for 2 weeks. And during that period of time, things escalated to the point where she had to be escorted out of the office place. And after that, there were false allegations that were made.
You should probably take that down now, because that might be a copyright.
There were false allegations. There were false allegations made to Child Protective Services against her, and there were all of these things that.
Well, that's her side, isn't it? Like, so we have to be really careful as well, because she issued, and that's what you do when you make a restraining order, and you do the same in America. You make these restraining orders, you tell your side of the story, and if the person doesn't come to defend it, like Johnny Depp didn't, remember, he flew off with his ban. So then they just issue it, right? So, and that was 22 years ago. So, and unless any of her, if she did spend any time in prison, she would never get called to the bar. She would never be a solicitor.
She has.
She couldn't.
And there were, I don't believe she has. And I think there were, because that Laura Ray did not believe that she had finished all of the requirements, because I think there was some type of internship or something. She did not believe that she had finished all of the requirements. She also mentioned that she wasn't sure. She wasn't aware of her holding full-time employment.
Right. And that would be something, well, that was 22 years ago. So I don't know if they have any contact since. So a lot could have happened.
She was scared. This is brought fear up for
now.
her. Yeah.
Moving into the area, but thinking of buying a house there. But she's married to a solicitor now. But she said that on Piers Morgan. Fiona.
After her husband passed?
No, Fiona is married. Fiona Harvey. Okay. She's not? That's what she said on Piers Morgan.
All right.
And that her husband is not filing this lawsuit.
Okay.
Somebody else is. So
Her status on Facebook says it's complicated, and so I don't know what, because Facebook status that doesn't always mean anything.
yeah,
Her accuracy with some of the things that she says, as a psychologist, I take some of that very, very lightly, because she also said that she wasn't fired from Laura Ray. She
yeah,
said some things that were not consistent. Now, when she said that she was not convicted, she was
mm,
very, it did seem like she was telling the truth when she was saying that, and she was very passionate about that. But she
mm.
also has denied things that there seems to be some evidence that it could have happened. So for everyone that's wondering, what is the story about? Thank you so much to the raid from MLS God of Law. Welcome over to Karen's stream. I'm Dr. Barry. And we are glad to get to combine our streams today. We are talking about Fiona Harvey's lawsuit against Netflix for the series Baby Reindeer. In that show, Martha is portrayed as, and in that show, she's convicted of stalking the main character, Donnie. Now, Donnie is supposed to be based on the real life experience of the actor, writer, and producer Richard Gadd. And I don't know if them changing some of the names, because he even changed his name. And so it seems like I could understand creatively if everything he said was not accurate, because he was telling a creative story about Donnie and wanting to
Yeah,
get certain things across. Because in watching the show, and really the reason why I watched it was because I had clients that were just raving, just like, oh my gosh, and they wanted to talk further about it. And so I do believe that they are possibly suing in both the US and the UK because of that difference in defamation rules. And so that is my understanding. Karen, did you want to try to answer this one? Oh,
yeah. Well, I heard that they could sue in the UK, that they haven't done that yet, because you have to sue where like, oh, your sound.
my kiddo was calling my name.
Uh, yeah. So all I've heard is this lawsuit, but if they continue to play it and stuff like that, I suppose then she'll think about suing in every country that it's still going to be played in. Because it's the amount of harm that we need to look at, right? The amount of so yeah, you were going to go on with this, so let's talk about that, because
I agree that it should have maybe said based on, but even if they had said based on a true story, she still may have had a even with the disclaimer that things have been changed, because in the show they make it sound like she was jailed and convicted of a crime, that it
yeah,
doesn't sound like that was completely accurate.
yeah, there was, well, so far we don't know, but we don't have any evidence that, and they even said, in the movie or in the series she's saying, I plead guilty, right? So she's even they've got her character doing that. So
Yeah.
I think she'll win that part. It's just the amount of damages, because in my view, that's
150 million. Like, I think they filed for a lot of damages.
yeah, they'll settle. Like I said, with the for the new people that came on, I was talking about Queen's Gambit, and that is a chess player. Yeah. And there's a Netflix series on that, and they said she hadn't played with any men, and she had played with men 59 times, against men, not played with them.
Yes.
So, and Netflix settled before that. So maybe this is why Netflix doesn't want to settle, because
And they have released a statement. So Netflix released a statement that says that they intend to defend this matter vigorously and to stand by Richard Gadd's right to tell his story. So that is what Netflix has said, that this isn't going to be an easy settlement. It sounds like this is one that they are going to try to fight, but we will see, because she has sued them for, I think it's over 150 million.
yeah,
And
I've seen different amounts
I've seen so many different numbers. But up here, I think it actually has the amounts that were stated, and I think people are trying to add it up in dollars and pounds.
Yeah. And if you guys remember the Depp versus Son hearing,
Mhm.
in that case, because remember I was saying the burden changes. So
Are you
in
still there?
that case, the defendant has to.
I think your sound, unless it was on my end, I
What's
can't
happening?
hear you. All right, Karen, go on ahead.
Hello. Can you
Yes,
hear me?
I can hear you
Yeah.
now. Kelly, technology, I'm telling you, because I heard like a little like static thing, and I knew like the roadcaster said, "Oh, we're not gonna do this anymore." And
So what I was talking about was the Sun when Johnny Depp sued the Sun in England. Because that burden is different, right? The Sun had to prove that they didn't cause defamation, that what they believed and they'd done their due diligence, their due care, and checked out everything. And so, but the judge believed that that Johnny Depp was AB, right? The word we don't want to use, and because most of them were, I think there was 12 or 15 accounts, and the judge didn't really believe 3 of them, but he said it was mostly true. So if the jury, I think this is going to be a jury one, she's asked for a jury, but it's pretty serious to say someone went to prison for 4.5 years or something. And
but I do think
serious.
that Fiona might have some credibility issues, but I think it's gonna be easy to prove, did she go to prison or not? I think that part is gonna be easy to prove,
Yeah.
but I think she might deny everything. But her lawyer did not say that she did not, like, the things that they're fighting seem to be very specific things from very
Mm.
specific scenes. And, from within the show, it doesn't sound like they are fighting everything.
No, and because there's some things that you might not be able to prove, right? Because obviously the burden is on her to prove it. So she can prove her police records, right? That's all she has to do. And that should show up and ask for a full disclosure, right? The problem is in Scotland, they do have what's called a suspend, and they remove some of the judgments. But I don't know if they would for prison though. It's like, I don't think they would. So I don't know enough about Scottish law. I just know I did a bit of a video on that with the Murdoch case because, he said there's a Scottish law called not proven. So I thought I'd dive into that a bit. And they do, once your sentence is spent, that's it.
M had a good question. Why would they say that she spent a specific amount of time in jail when she didn't? Especially to say it twice,
Mm.
not just once, but to say it twice. And I wonder if it told a better story because he would know if she was convicted for him or not. Like he would
Mm.
definitely know if they ever went to court for anything related to him. He might not know all the specifics of what happened in the other
No,
situation.
there'd be a trial. Like, there'd be especially if it was in England, we could definitely find out. I mean, not all criminal courts report what's going on. Like I'm set up to receive like all judgments from crown courts. So you get them eventually, but you'd have to be watching for that day, and it's hard to catch if you don't catch it. So, but you can do searches. You can do searches between. You can pick a court. You can, so there is ways to find out. Definitely.
Let us
I mean,
know if
that's
y'all
pretty
have
serious.
let us know if y'all have any other questions related to this case. I thought it
Mhm.
was very interesting that they are proceeding with a lawsuit, and I'll definitely be keeping an eye on that. I do think that there's a chance that it might eventually settle. It could,
Mhm.
I don't know, but because it's gonna cost everyone a bunch of money trying to litigate this, especially if they're
I mean,
litigating
and
it in two
even
different
though even if she's not working, right? Because damages, you could have loss of earnings, but she may not have loss of earnings if she's not working. But it would be the amount of harm done to her. And if every time she goes out, she has to explain to people, I've never been to prison, right?
And
That's a
the hard
pretty
part
serious.
the hard part with that one is her filing this before she went on Piers Morgan to say it was me.
Hmm.
If I was on
Say
the
that again?
jury, so the hard part about that is the fact that she went on Piers Morgan to say it was her.
Mhm. Yeah. So when did you say, what's the date on the filing? Because in California, you have to file within 1 year, right? And she only found out 2 weeks ago. She said on Pierce Morgan. So I don't know when she was on Pierce Morgan.
So it was it was filed June 6th, but I'm saying that Netflix never outed her.
No, but they didn't
She
have to, because she found out through other people, right?
but then she went
That
on a
contacted
public
her.
show and said it was me.
Because she's getting the story straight, right? She's saying, look, I never went to prison, right? So from that point of view. And the other problem I thought with, that's fine. She can, say that she's never been to prison. But what she did was, she might have hurt her credibility a bit, the way she talked. And then all these other people, because that other lady, the Ray lady, said she was getting contact by people. So that had nothing to do with Fiona. They just figured it out as well, right? So she said she had been and Netflix contacted her. She had actually spoken to Netflix on the Pierce Morgan show. So, I don't think, unless Netflix, I don't think that document that says she's got like a restraining order that was given for a year 22 years ago is, I wouldn't even think that should come into evidence.
We
And
will
that lady
see.
never did anything about her stalking. And
And
stalking has a statute, right? So she wouldn't even be able to do anything about it in England. Yeah.
I think legally there were some things that she wasn't able to do because it was just excessive. It wasn't necessarily aggressive. It was just
Hmm.
a lot of messages. And
Well, again, and that's one story, isn't it? And she probably wouldn't even have the evidence now. So, we have to be careful. But it sounds like, because she was saying some of the behaviors were very similar, so she could attest to that. But that doesn't, to me, that's still the lie that she didn't go to prison. That's, to me, nothing else matters. The 40,000 emails, okay, well, that sounds bizarre, and that sounds like they're, fabricating it, or, building it up to be something it's not, how they say that. But I don't think, and all the voice messages, she said she didn't even have his phone number, and she should be able to prove that.
but I think he has messages from her. Like, I think so
Yeah.
there,
Email.
I don't know how accurate, because I don't know how accurate. So that's where I think some of her credibility, I do think she didn't go to jail. It does seem like there was more contact than what she said on Piers Morgan. And that's
Yeah.
just
And
that's
that doesn't matter. What we're talking about is the lie, because that's the only thing. You've got to, prove that a lie took place, right? That something that wasn't factual. And they say this is a true story. No matter what, they say that at the beginning. Even when I went on to Netflix to look at this, right, just to see, it said true crime story. As soon as, I mean, that's the very outside of it. So, there, and to say it's his story, well, an opinion, like then it would be, well, it felt like I was getting 40 emails from her. Oh, I wish she'd go to prison. That's an opinion, right? There's a difference with that. But, so, and I think if you watch the series, like we were talking, lots of people just came in, but when you were watching it, you go straight to the next one, don't you? You don't like play a bunch of them or play to the very end and watch this, and sometimes you don't even play the beginning, because it says skip the intro. So, I mean, I would think, especially now that the Scottish government said they have to come back with evidence. So how is he going to base that evidence? Right? So I think that's going to be a problem as well. So even if I just think, she can get police reports.
And I don't know, because in the show he struggles to get, because in her lawsuit, she talks about him being a substance user, him admitting to making like false statements, because in the show he tries to get her to catch her making a statement that would be considered illegal so that he could catch her in something. Like that's where, to me, the show does not make him look good. The show, if you watch the show, like you don't come out.
It's not. That's not.
Yeah.
I think if you think of defamation, like it's your reputation.
Yeah.
Right. So if I write a book and I say, oh, I was really good friends with Dr. Patrice and we used to chat all the time, and oh my God, then she started sending me 40,000 emails, and she did go to prison. You know that, right? How would you would die. This is like, it doesn't matter. It's just completely wrong. I think it's completely wrong. And I would award her, especially because Netflix will be worth millions, won't they? Billions. I think they said they're worth billions. I'm not watching the chat. Are you watching?
Yes, I am.
So, yeah, I think, and they could be making a decision that, look at it's we did our due diligence and he came up with this paper that said she could go to prison. Well, so then we'll take it to the next step, right? Maybe that's their thinking.
Mm-hmm.
Because they embellished the story, they dramatized it. So maybe they're thinking, well, when he showed, look at this is, with the Ray, the MP, but that's a restraining order. That's a far cry from saying I'm guilty to going to prison.
And I think this is where Netflix could get into some trouble if Richard Gadd knew that she never went to jail, and that it could be up to a jury to decide if that was too far. So this statement says defamation has to be false, though, and the person has to know it was a lie, right? And that's where Karen can answer the legal side. I mean, Netflix says it was based on the play.
No, an opinion.
Mm-hmm.
You can make an opinion and you don't have to know the truth. But if you factually make something as a truth statement, then you are saying that you know it to be true, right? Oh, she's gone.
You're good. Oh. I'm here.
Yeah. So it's not like there was another lawsuit, and people thought things were true that were being said, so they would spread it, right? So do you remember in the Amber Heard trial, she then sent an email to someone else? Do you want to sort him?
All right. I was listening. I could hear you.
Yeah. So what was I saying? They
about Amber Heard.
Yeah. So when Amber Heard, remember, she was forwarding that her own, that
That's
we
what
don't want to talk about there.
the
We don't
guy
want to.
the guy from TMZ said that, I think it was alleged that was his testimony, I think, that
Hmm.
she was, or somebody from her team was telling them where she would be, how to get the picture, to make sure, because there was a mark
Yeah.
on this side, and so that's what the testimony from the guy from TMZ.
But she forwarded the thing that she forwarded information that she knew was not true. And so, and what Netflix is doing is by spreading it around the world. So they have to do, and it was quite interesting to watch that committee. So we played a bit of that tape of the committee, the UK Parliament. And so what they have to do before it can win awards, they have to let it play. And so because the UK government was saying, well, why isn't it in movies, and why are we getting it, and Netflix says, no, it's a Netflix series. So it's really interesting if you want to watch that, because so that's how she could end up suing, because so if you watch something in America, right? So I remember when Dexter was on, I was flying to Miami so I could get the next Dexter because it wasn't in England. And so they come out at different times, right? So that would be why she could sue different countries and different places when Netflix spread the lie around the world. Don't know how much she'd get if France knew, but or
And that's where, so a lot of productions, they now have a legal team that kind of takes a look, and I'm sure
Mhm.
Netflix, they might kind of up their budget for this part to make sure that the things that are claimed, especially something like somebody going to jail, being convicted of a crime, you might want you might want evidence that this actually happened. But sometimes what they might have to pay out in a claim, because Netflix is also getting a ton of publicity from this lawsuit. People might go and watch the series just because of the lawsuit. And so that is where we will definitely see what happens with them. It does not sound like they are looking to quietly settle. It sounds like they are going to try to fight it. If it goes to a jury trial, I will definitely watch that, because I think on the jury, I think there could be a bunch of different opinions, and I think they would try to have people that hadn't seen the series at all, that were not aware of it. Because somebody that's seen the series, you might have prejudice one way or another. Because I've seen it and I really loved it,
Really?
and it was, but, I had to skip. So episode 4, for anybody that goes and watches it, episode 4 is extremely triggering. I did another video talking about my analysis of the character Martha. I kind of stayed away from talking about Fiona because it does seem like there are some there, and it's been said on Piers Morgan, it's been said multiple places, that there may be some mental health things going on. And but with this lawsuit, this brings her into the limelight, which was why I was very comfortable kind of just talking in general about the case now, and just concerns with credibility, and just because it seems like she really believes some of the things that can come off delusional almost, where she thinks she's has a connection that she might not have, and this is just in general, just based on just general information and just what she said, specifically Laura Ray. Laura Ray to me came off very credible in her interview with Piers Morgan.
Yeah, she did.
And
But
and
that, like I said, we're going back 22 years. So I don't really, from a professional point of view, I don't really like bringing something like that up from 22 years ago that she didn't even take. Well, she said
so
she talked to
that
the police, but they
incident
did
was
nothing.
mentioned. That incident was mentioned in the show, and that
Yeah.
incident was what they
Oh,
said she was jailed about. And so we
yeah.
know that's not true,
4.5 years, right?
because Laura Ray said she was never incarcerated for it. So in
Yeah.
the show, she says, because he has these uncomfortable interactions, and then he finally Googles her and he says, "Oh my gosh, she's a convicted stalker," and it doesn't
Yeah.
sound like that is true.
Yeah, and this is like she said, well, I'll sue her for saying that she left because she's lying. But so, you know, if there's negligence, which I think they can prove that it's negligent if she never went to prison, right? That's pretty negligent. And intentional infliction of emotional distress. I mean, saying you went to prison, I would have thought that's, you know, but you're saying if they watched the movie, would they not feel that way? If you like, would you now feel like you met this lady and you say, oh, she's a real nutcase?
If you've watched the show, it's almost like what's happening now is episode 8.
Oh, I heard that. Yeah.
And that is what I think Popcorn Planet and other people, if you watch the show, this is
Yeah.
exactly when Donnie writes a play about Martha, Martha then goes on a popular, like this is exactly, Martha says she didn't watch it, but she actually watched the whole thing and analyzed every second and just focused on and didn't get what other people got from it. Like this really feels like episode 8.
Right. Well, I just don't know why they didn't get her involved in the story. But I don't buy this. This is his story.
No. So she would have probably tried to shut it down. She would not have been able, I think, to be at, because she said she's only met him on the Piers Morgan interview. She said she had met him twice. She said that she didn't have his phone number. Like there were things that she said that I think could easily be discredited from Piers Morgan's interview. I do not think that she was incarcerated. I do think that because even Laura Ray, because on Piers Morgan, she said that she walked out of Laura Ray's employment, and Laura Ray was like, if you consider, like, we physically escorted her out, like that's.
Well, they might have given
Laura
her
Ray
a
was
choice.
like,
They might have said, you can make a choice, right?
No. Laura Ray says her and somebody else had to physically escort her out of the building. That's what
But they
Laura
may
Ray
have
said.
not fired her, is what I'm saying, right?
Laura Ray said that she was
walked
fired.
out.
No, Laura Ray said that she was fired.
Yeah, but was there a letter? Right? Is there going to be?
Laura Ray said that the employee was giving.
They have all the information still, don't they?
I don't know. But Laura Ray said that while answering the hotline that her employer paid for, that they were giving attorneys from competing organizations. Like there was just it was just very concerning. And I think
she did say she talked at the university, right? So there's some similar behaviors. But yeah, I just don't know if they'll take something from 22 years ago. But that's not going to be about this lie, because that's not what she's suing for. She's suing for the statements that she went to prison, the 2 statements. I think that's all she's suing for.
And the statement that she went to prison was about that incident, was about the PM. That it was about that situation and the wife of the PM. And so I'm not sure but Laura Ray could also have a
somebody
loss.
said by referencing the statement makes no sense. So it's the statement of case that she's made?
I don't know.
No, I think someone in the chat doesn't know what we're referring to. So she put a lawsuit, a claim in. She's a claimant. So she made a statement in that claim, what she's suing for. Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, I still think that's not in the lawsuit. So I don't even know how that would come in. I can't see it coming in because
from Netflix's side. Do you think Netflix might bring it in?
It doesn't matter because they lied about if she can prove she never went to prison. And now that the Scottish government has asked for them, Netflix has to show proof. Karen, please stop interrupting.
We might have a little delay. It's because I've been interrupting as well.
Yeah, we can't hear, like, when she's talking, it doesn't sound like she's talking to me. Yeah.
Did you have any final thoughts with this one?
Yeah, I think she's got a pretty good chance of winning, especially because the Scottish government has asked her to, or it's actually the UK government has asked Netflix to prove where they got that from. So they're looking at due diligence. So Netflix has got to be really careful here because they get a lot of funding from the UK government to do movies and stuff like that. So, oh, I've got another one. Please stop.
No, she says, please don't stop. Hedgehog is being funny. Hedgehog in space, it says, please don't stop. Hedgehog in space is being funny.
Yeah, we have
So
to wait for a couple seconds to talk because it is an overlap, isn't it? Yeah, so I just think she probably would have a good chance of winning, you know, even if she's not working. I think because there's going to be a huge emotional distress.
What do you think might be a reasonable judgment? What do you think a jury, because she's asking for 150 million.
In England, she'd be lucky to get like 20,000. So I don't know. I mean, those are crazy numbers. I think the thing is, they say this is a true story. So I think if that movie, if that series made them, I don't know, couple of, like $1 billion, then that's nothing what she's asking for, right?
And the filing that I found was filed in California. I do believe that there might have been something. So I am not. Did they file in the UK as well, or is it only in the
Not
US?
that I know of yet.
So it's
It
my
hasn't been
understanding that the filing, because Netflix is based in California, I think that
Yeah.
is why they have filed
Yeah.
in California.
They have to file where, you know, where it goes to. But because they build it as a true story, that made people log in, right? That made people interested. And then it got crazier and crazier and crazier. And they're saying it's a true story in every episode, and it's only at the end to say some of it. So I think she's got a good lawsuit for the emotional distress and violations of right of publicity and stuff. So
I don't think, because she's asking for more than 150 million. I don't think that. Now, if she had been fired from the job that she was holding because of it, or if something happened directly related to this.
It's your reputation. So your reputation and your emotional distress. Somebody saying you've been to prison and she's a lawyer, like that would be horrible. So, and the other thing is, California doesn't have any laws on having a cap for punitive damages.
Yeah.
So I thought that was a little different than, you know, whereas in the UK, we don't have punitive damages. So that's something that people should be mindful of. I had some notes.
So real quick,
so it's a civil liability, right? So it's a civil burden. The 50% probability. I'm afraid to talk because
no worries. So I wanted to answer this one real quick. Maybe a silly question. If she's only going to fight the assertion that she was in prison, should she not be worried that she's affirming the rest or making her still look bad by not disputing the other claims? So she did dispute that she did not SA him. So we did not go through the entire lawsuit. The entire lawsuit is available. I found it on Reddit. That's where I found it. A PDF to the entire lawsuit.
I did read it all. But I mean, the thing is, it might be hard because the burden's on her to prove something, right? How is she going to prove that she never sent 407,000 emails or whatever he said, right? What did he say in the movie? He said,
which part?
How many emails did he say? 41,007 or something?
But that I wonder if that part is true though. I wonder if he has that number.
But then
Um,
he'll have to show that if
yeah. Because I do believe he still has the over 300 hours of voice messages or something. I think he has a lot of this still. I think he might have it. I don't know that he does or not. And he's tried to
oh,
stay
yep,
out of it.
there.
And somebody else said, so I'm not sure. We're seeing numbers in the 40,000s. And somebody
40.
said, like, that's like sending multiple emails a day. And in the show, he goes to show the officer one of the emails, and it's something about eggs. Like it's some odd message about like this is a broken egg. Or I don't know, like it was something real innocuous. So the amount of messages, and if you watch the show, he talks about getting more stressed and worried when she wasn't excessively contacting him, and there were things that came up. So I'm viewing this from like as a psychologist, and what I think some of this did for like people that have experienced the types of things that especially as a male victim, because somebody said in the comments, if the roles were reversed, would somebody still be fighting this hard, or would we see it differently? But what were you going to say?
Yeah, now I forgot what I was going to say. So we were talking about get my memory back. That's the problem. I got all excited to say something. So, oh yeah, that's what I was going to say. So he said it was emails that she sent 40,000 or whatever, right? So I thought, okay, well, maybe it was Twitter or something, because I mean, on YouTube, you can get banned if you do more than so many a day, right? You can get stopped from messaging. So if it was X or something, I could understand, or, like Twitter or whatever, because they just go back and forth, don't they? That could add up to a lot, but he actually said emails. And then I just take us back to, the Queen's Gambit, like to say that she never played men. And that's pretty serious. And I think it's going to go back to what she can prove. And that's why she brought that up, because of the burden. Now she might sue in England for that 40,000 and for the other things he said, because then he is going to have to prove that. Right? Whereas in California, she has to prove it. She might not even have the same computer or know her IP address or anything, which he should have it if technically he's that many got sent.
We will definitely see. So from your perspective, you thought that she has a pretty strong case. From my perspective, I am still struck by the fact that she came forward in such a public way, and she seems to want to do more interviews, and now she stepped back from the limelight now that she has the lawsuit, but she has over like 30,000 followers on Facebook, because she was doing multiple messages, like Facebook posts every day, just on her thoughts on things. I looked at it, I think twice, because she was not happy after the Piers Morgan interview. She was not happy with, because there's another guy that's been covering her situation as well. And I think Netflix might have to do something about saying that she was a convicted stalker. I am not sure that she would get all that she's asking for. I think it'll be significantly less. And depending on how everything went,
she would sound a bit doolally, right? Because she's kind of all over the place when you're listening to her. And so if she can't, speak well, like what happened with Amber Heard, I keep going back to that because she was like the perfect example, isn't it? That you can just be not liked. And if your personality, so I think that why wouldn't she ask for a judge?
I think she wants a jury. I think she wants a jury.
Mm.
And her attorney might also think that they have a better case with a jury as well versus a judge.
Mm. Yeah. And I think people, if when I only heard about this last night, right? When you were talking to me about it. So I did the research on it and I thought, well, why would they say that? That's what bothers me is their statement at the beginning. That, this is a true story. And so from there on, they got the clicks, they got the views. So as soon as, Oprah, didn't something happen with her and she got sued? Do you remember that years ago?
And I don't remember the exact case. I saw it came up on Dr. Phil recently. Dr. Phil did an interview with somebody and it came up recently, but I don't know the
Yeah, but
specifics.
it was a real big thing because and there's lots of people. I think there was, I don't want to say his name, but a guy in England and he does, outdoors. Got one of his books, but he, it's like surviving outdoors. And they found out, oh, he was staying in a hotel and coming out every day. So
Do you think that this sorry, my bad. Do you think this case would do better with a jury or with a judge? If you were the lawyer, what would you recommend to your client?
I think a jury is better, but because it's a civil case, she has to take the stand, right? And so, yeah, it's her case. She has to go and, she can't plead the fifth because that's only for criminal. So a judge can say to her, look, you have to answer that question, right? So Lexi said, I remember that.
Now,
So
I do think she did get significant negative attention. So when people figured out, I think people probably did go to any of her public social media and she might have received hateful messages.
if she
And
did,
just
that's going to be, the book that Oprah got in trouble with, put 1 million little pieces, where the guy talked about going to rehab and recovery. Right. That is it. I just remember that there's lots of defamation cases when somebody is telling lies. So if I can't believe anybody wouldn't be emotionally harmed if somebody had said, I've been to prison. I'd be like, why are you saying that? But now you're telling the world. I think that on its own, in my view.
And I'm odd. I would have turned my stuff private. I would have tried.
She didn't know 2 weeks ago, supposedly.
I wouldn't have went on Piers Morgan. So she did say that she knew the play was about her. So because it started with a one-man play and then it went to the Edinburgh Festival.
Well,
And she said on Piers Morgan that it was on BBC Breaking News. And that was how she found. And so she was aware that
been any money. That's another thing with a defamation.
It sold out. It's my understanding it was a pretty popular play because even the actress that played Martha was unable to get a ticket to that show that was in the Edinburgh Festival. And so that's
a big thing with defamation suits. If somebody doesn't have any money, there's no point in doing it because you're not going to get anywhere, But we did have a radio and news guy that went to prison. He's still in prison it was called stalking because he kept sending emails and just never stopped, So it's like pretty serious, isn't it?
I'm glad that we were able to do this joint stream. Welcome, SL Conley. Please go back and take a look at the video because we are going to go ahead and start to wrap things up. Once again, I'm Dr. Barry. I'm a licensed psychologist, and I was able to put this on my stream. Karen was able to stream over to her channel as well.
Mhm.
I enjoy covering the psychological aspects of legal and entertainment news, and I will definitely
Yeah.
be watching this one moving forward. Karen, any final thoughts?
Yeah, if you want to know more about defamation, especially with the differences of England and America, I did do a series on the Johnny Depp, and with all my videos, I hope to give you a visual to law, but also something that you can take away from for yourself, like something to something practical from an everyday point of view. So, and I do talk about the Johnny Depp versus the Sun in another defamation. And then just be careful what you write on your media platforms too, because that could be defamation. And I think a lot of people don't realize that. So if, let's say, there's some hate comments, I can go, or she can come to me, Dr. Patrice can come to me and say, Karen, take that down, remove that comment. So you should always give somebody, a cease and desist letter before you start a lawsuit, right? So I don't know if this girl would have said to Netflix, you got to stop showing that show. But yeah, so we don't any hate comments, and people don't realize that even in our chats, and if you say something negative about us that isn't true, that is defamation. That's one form of it. And so, I always say to people, just be careful on Facebook or all those crazy, places. Yeah. So check out those.
That is awesome. Yep. I wanted to end with one last comment. Is there a
Oh, we didn't even
possibility
get
that
the comment.
Is there a possibility that Gad lied intentionally so that Fiona could sue?
I
I
wonder if they collected
honestly,
this up.
so I don't know, but just in thinking and looking back at things, I don't think he thought it was gonna become the sensational, like, it was number 1 on Netflix for weeks, and it's
Mm,
probably been watched and streamed even more times than it was originally. It is Piers Morgan, Fiona, the true life person. I think her interview is one of his top-rated interviews on his channel. I don't think anyone thought it was going to become what
mm,
it became, and then the internet does what the internet does. So people then went and
yeah.
tried to find her. And there was nothing in the show that said, please don't try to find these people. Because people also tried to find whoever the
Oh,
male
yes.
producer,
Yeah. They
because
are. Yeah.
somebody was inaccurately identified. According to Richard Gadd, somebody was inaccurately identified as the possible person, and Richard Gadd came forward to say, "No, this is not the person. Please do not try to find the real people." And he's refused to comment. When people try to comment on, like, "So what do you think about Fiona?" I don't know, like, when people try to get him to
Mm,
comment on this, he refuses to speak on this at all. And he said that he did not want this to come up. She is not suing Richard Gadd. She is
yeah.
suing Netflix. And
Yeah,
I think
because
that
they are
is
the ones. So this is, with defamation, that's what has to happen, right? It has to be sent to one or more persons beside yourself. Like, so Richard isn't the one sending it, is he? Gad isn't the one sending it. That's the defamation part. So,
and Kelly
and
Alexander, sorry, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
no,
Okay, sorry.
you go.
So Kelly Alexander, true crime is a growing field that people are really, really interested in. And so if this wasn't based on a true story, I do agree with Fiona's team as well that it might not have gotten the publicity and the
No.
notoriety because the story is so just like, oh my gosh, you don't like it's so excessive. You think how can this be true? And the fact that they said it was true, I think that adds an extra
I
part
think
to it.
or
And
they could have done it like a dream in his head, to make it so that it wasn't, that. I thought, well, maybe that was a way they could get away with it, but he's saying it's true. So
and
yeah.
and they have him typing, and so I have seen somebody's analysis that it seems like he is writing the story, and so it's almost like he's writing the play again, or like he's
Mm.
writing the story, and so I don't know. It is very
And Netflix
interesting.
doubled down and said it's a true, but when they doubled down okay, so when they said it's a true, but then they said it's his expression of his, I wrote it down. What did he say? Um, it's a fictional realm, even though it is true, it exists as a fictional realm.
Which is vague.
Well,
That's very vague.
that, that's pretty bad. It's like, so yeah. It was real, and then he said, if it was real, I would have made a documentary.
Oh.
Okay, I didn't really get that part either. So yeah,
Because he wasn't saying, because he changed the names of everyone involved, and I do think that they did not do enough, because they used the the exact tweets that still existed and that were still public. And I think even Piers Morgan said they could have warned her, like, hey, just a heads up, this is
yeah.
coming out. If they had warned her, she might have been able to do a cease and desist and maybe stop it from being released. I don't know.
And Wendy Adelson, she wrote a book, and everybody's trying to say it's a true story, even though she changed all the characters. Remember, she changed all the characters in her book. And you don't know that book?
What happens in her book? I haven't
Oh my God,
heard
it's
that one.
basically a story. You've got to just find it before we talk about it, because I don't want to ruin it for you. But and everybody's saying, oh, that's that's a true story of what's happening in her life. But she changed all the names. She said it was a fictional book. It's about a lawyer, breaks up with her husband. We don't want to get into the details because of everything. But yeah, and everybody said, oh, that's a story of her life, right? And she's saying, no, it's a fictional character. It's how I felt. It was a way for me emotionally to get through it. And she was upset because she said Dan hadn't read the book, and that was one of the issues. And she started going to this writers club. So she did it the way you're supposed to do it, as a fictional, and yet she's being blamed for saying, oh, it's real.
So I have to share it real quick. It really is. It's called This Is Our Story.
Yeah.
Follows the real lives of Rosa and Mila, two young women from different countries who both become victims of horrific things. Okay.
Yeah.
So
Read it.
wow. Wow. It does not have very good ratings on here.
Yeah, but I think that's ever since it was doing really well, and then I think ever since the trial. Yeah.
Wow.
I think YouTube should, or not YouTube, but StreamYard should give us one of those little lights to know when because to me, just so the chat knows, it feels like there's empty space, doesn't it?
I'm glad that we're able to both put it on our channels at the same time. But any final, we got off, so we're gonna close for a second time. Do you have any last thoughts or anything?
No, I think if they're smart, they'll just settle. And then she can live the rest of her life being quiet and not bothering anybody.
I don't think they're gonna settle. I think they're gonna fight this one, and I think they're going to see what a jury thinks. And if I was on the jury, I would have an issue if it came up that she went on Piers Morgan. I would have an issue with that personally, but that's just me. And once again, I've seen the show, I've seen everything, so I would be disqualified. I wouldn't be a good neutral juror. It'll be interesting to see just
look at the Murdoch
ends
case.
up
They had a whole Netflix series, and people were out talking about it in the Murdoch case way before the trial. Remember?
Yep. I watched it. I watched that
Oh, I
one,
didn't watch it. Yeah,
and there have been a few other trials. There have
on
been a
Netflix.
few other trials where, yes, where that's come forward. Wow.
Hmm. Yeah. So
All right.
anyway, yeah, excellent. Thank you.
Thank you all so much for joining us. We're gonna go on ahead and hop off. Y'all enjoy the rest of your day.
What a good juror.